Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Master Your Millions, the show where we talk about how to accumulate wealth, enjoy it during your life, and pass it on for generations. Today, I'm your host, Carter Henderson, and we're diving into a topic that most people misunderstand, the infinite banking concept, otherwise known as IBC. But we're not going to ask the usual questions. Today, we're going to ask the questions that you should be asking, the ones that open up an entirely new way to think about money.
Yes, let's pull back the curtain, Carter. Most people don't realize how much money they're losing just by using the system the way they were taught.
Absolutely. And to be honest, most people are using somebody else's system, right? And that leads us to our first question, which is, what is the real cost of keeping my money in someone else's system instead of owning my own?
Most people never stop to calculate the true cost of playing by someone else's rules. Think about it. How much interest have you paid through banks and other financial institutions over your lifetime? How many investment returns have you missed out on because your money was locked up somewhere? What would happen if you could recapture those dollars and put them to work in your own system? IBC helps you stop leaking wealth and start controlling it forever.
Wonderful. And right along that trend of talking about locking our capital up, that's our second question is if I lost access to my capital for 3 to 5 years, what would that do to my financial flexibility?
Emergencies and opportunities don't wait for your 401k to mature. If you needed $50,000 tomorrow, could you access it without penalties or permission? With the infinite banking concept, your capital is liquid and available when you need it, not tied up in government controlled accounts with strings attached. What's the value of opportunity if you can't act on it? The ability to move fast and act decisively is a wealth strategy. The infinite banking concept gives you that edge.
Absolutely. And that's totally true, right? If you have a wonderful opportunity in front of you, but you don't have the ability to take advantage of it, you might as well never have had the opportunity. Which brings us to our third question. How long do I want to keep depending on banks that profit off of me and my money, to be honest, when I could profit off of myself instead?
Every time you borrow from a bank, you're growing their empire, not yours, plain and simple. Why are you still renting money when you could be the owner of your own banking system? The wealthy understand that controlling the banking function is the key to building lasting wealth. IBC lets you become the bank, earn interest, and not simply pay it. What would it feel like to no longer ask permission to use your own money and get paid doing it?
Totally. And question number four, Jason, is how much can I safely put into the infinite banking concept each year? And could I actually run my entire financial life through it?
Once people completely understand how powerful IBC is, they stop asking what's the minimum. And that's something if you remember from last week's episode is a frequently asked question. The real question is, what's the maximum I can safely fund into policies without creating a taxable event? Because the more money you can store inside this system, the more powerful it becomes. Many of my clients run their entire personal and business financial lives through their policies. What would it look like if every dollar you touched flowed through a system you own?
An excellent point, especially when you consider that for most people right now, 100% of their dollars are flowing through somebody else's system. And that somebody else's system is using those dollars to make money that the owner of those dollars is never seeing any part of that return. So for question number five, am I chasing a rate of return that I'm making each year, or am I actually building a system that guarantees results no matter what the market does?
This is a really good question, especially since Wall Street has trained us to chase percentages. What would the game, what the game, start over. But what if the game isn't about chasing returns? It's about creating consistency and control. The infinite banking concept isn't designed to compete with high risk investments. It's designed to give you a foundation, one that's liquid, predictable, and safe. If your foundation was rock solid, how much more confidently could you invest, take risks, or scale your business? It's not about returns, it's about results that you can absolutely count on. I know of no other financial product or institution that will put these kind of results and guarantees in writing. Want to do the experiment? Ask your, run-of-the-mill financial planner or someone else that you may be working with, what will you guarantee me, and do it in writing.
It's a very, very strong benefit of IBC. And most people do have retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, etc. And what is the difference between having a retirement account and a source of capital that I control at all times?
Well, let's face it, traditional retirement accounts are designed to benefit the system, not you. Think about it. What good is a retirement account if it punishes you for accessing your money before 59 and a half? As a kid, I was always taught value is in use, right? I have a neighbor, had a neighbor that lived up the street. He was a roofer. And he came by one day, and in the back of his truck, he had a brand new pneumatic hammer. And he had paid north of $700 for that hammer. Now, when I was looking at it, I said, wow, from my perspective, and then I bought that hammer, what a terrible investment that would be, right? I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know what to do with it. However, he knew what to do with it. He knew that he could make money with it. So that was a great investment. Value is in use. Okay. And let me remind you that with the infinite banking concept, you're not waiting for a future you can't predict. Okay. We don't know what's going to happen. You're building a source of capital that's available right now for emergencies, opportunities, or to invest in something else. Think about it. What would change in your life if you could access your capital without delay, penalties, or restrictions?
And speaking of delays, penalties, and restrictions, right? Everybody knows that today's political environment is changing, right? Taxes change, rules change, et cetera, et cetera. So if the government changes the rules on my or somebody else's 401k, IRA, the way we do taxes, what's my plan B?
So that's question number 7. You bet. That's a great question. And I guess one of the things that, as an answer, is a counter question back to you. Can you say with 100% certainty that Congress won't raise taxes in the future or change the rules on your 401k or IRA? Or are you just hoping they won't touch your retirement plan? The truth is, qualified plans are political tools, and the rules do change. But the infinite banking concept isn't subject to shifting legislation. At the heart of it, it's a private, contractual, and built to last system. It's a private contract between you and other like minded people. If your entire retirement is based on a system someone else controls, how safe is it really? I think that the infinite banking concept gives you your power back, control over your own future, your own destiny. The fact that you have guarantees and you can rely on other people that think the same way as you do.
Totally. So for those people that are starting out, Jason, and learning how the infinite banking concept works, if they or myself truly understood how it worked, would we be asking what the minimum is or how much I can get into it every year?
That's a great question. And we've dabbled around this a little bit. But here's the thing, this question reveals everything about someone's mindset. Do you want to dabble in freedom or dive in? The wealthy are asking, what's the most I could put in without triggering taxes? Why? Because IBC is one of the few legal tools left that gives control, tax advantages, and uninterrupted compounding. What would your wealth look like if you stopped thinking in minimums and started thinking in maximums? When you really understand what's happening with this whole concept, what's happening in the financial world, what's happening with the financial players in the play, you will start asking, what's the maximum I can put into here? And that, like I said from the beginning, is kind of has to do with your mindset and kind of has to do with how well you understand the concept.
Gotcha. And, I can't count the number of times because I'm a practitioner of IBC, right? That people have told me that whole life insurance is no good, right? So why is it that wealthy people, major corporations, I mean, there's more than 3,000 banks that own whole life insurance. Why do they own whole life while the average person is told not to?
Isn't that kind of a crazy thing? I believe it's Bank of America. You look at their balance sheets and their holdings in cash value life insurance is worth more than their 5,600 branches. And I'm talking about the real estate, 5,600 branches and the second tallest building in Manhattan combined, right? It's the single biggest asset on their balance sheet. And you ever wonder why, the banks and the CEOs are quietly stockpiling whole life insurance while the average person is not really being told about it or even being told that it's a bad deal? I did a study, it's probably been 15, 16 years ago, was helping write a book called Get What Congress Gets. And what I did is I went through all of the public records of every member of the House of Representatives, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the major people in the executive branch, president, vice presidents, the cabinet leaders, etc. Right? And what I found is that the longer people had been in service in government, the more they had in cash value life insurance. At the time when you average it over all of the members, it was just shy of $350,000 in cash value life insurance. I'm talking about their cash surrender value. And the other thing that was interesting, like some of them that had been there a long time, they had millions, multiple millions of dollars in cash value. In fact, when Anton Scalia died, he had a loan of $1 million against his life insurance contract, right? And the reality is, it's because IBC isn't new, okay? It's somewhat restricted on how it's marketed to the masses, but it's also sometimes not even talked about. And some of the financial entertainers that you find on the radio or television or wherever else, they're saying, oh, this is terrible, it's terrible. The reality is those that are in the know are purchasing whole life insurance as fast as they can, and they have gobs of it, right? If the strategy wasn't powerful, think about it. Why would the financial elite keep it behind the curtain? The truth has been hidden in plain sight for everyone all along. I'm inviting you that maybe now is the time that you use it.
Wonderful. For our final question today, Jason, what would change my life if I never had to ask permission to own or use my money again?
It's a really good question. Is it think about how many times you've had to apply to use your own money, loan approvals, credit checks, bank delays. What if that ended today? The infinite banking concept puts you in control. You become the banker. You decide when, why, and how your money moves. What would change in your confidence, your peace of mind, and your freedom if no one could ever say no to your money again?
Is kind of a bonus question, I guess. What kind of legacy system am I building? A bank that blesses generations or a hope-filled plan that might expire with me? Because let's be honest, only, I'm going to die someday. What happens after that?
This is a really good question, and it always makes me think like people are starting to think long term. The wealthy, for the most part, think in decades or even in lifetimes, where Main Street often thinks about the next paycheck. There really is the disconnect from those that have and the people that have not, those that are dependent or live from paycheck to paycheck, those that are building wealth on a vast scale. It has to do with time frame. Those that are going paycheck to paycheck really are building a system or attempting to amass enough money to make it through their lifetime. And all along, they're greasing the wheels of industry, greasing the wheels of banking, financial institutions, and the like, right? Where the wealthy, they're building massive wealth for generations. And what they're then starting to do is they spend a lot of time educating the next generation. It doesn't matter how much money you pass on to the next generation in the event that generation is not prepared to receive the money. That's one of the things that are premises of this whole podcast is accumulating money, enjoying the wealth, and passing it on to the next generation. Well, part of passing on that to the next generation is a cultural, it's a education thing. When the wealthy go on vacation, they talk about family heritage, they talk about how the money was made, why the money is being used the way it is. And so, what we really want to do with this whole concept is to bring a family together, educate everybody involved, and then make it really simple to pass a massive amount on to the next generation, and they receive it. And what are they going to do? They're going to enjoy it during their lifetime, and they're going to multiply it and send it on to the next generation. Real quick, a story of two families. And you've heard this before, yet I'm going to share it with you again. The Rockefellers, they created system, they created entities, and you have used whole life insurance to pass wealth from generation to generation. They're now in their sixth, maybe seventh generation since John D. Rockefeller started. And each generation has gotten wealthier and wealthier. And they're out there attempting to do good in society. Some people will argue, well, they're not doing so good for society. That doesn't matter. What they've done, their success has been, though, in passing generation or wealth from generation to generation and increasing it. A different family, the Vanderbilts, when Cornelius Vanderbilt died in the late 1890s, he passed his heirs more money than what was in the United States Treasury at the time. Massive amount of money. The problem was is the next generation did not have the financial education, the grounding principles, if you will, or guidelines that should be in place to help them know what to do with the money and how to multiply it. If you fast forward then to the grandchildren who had a family reunion at Vanderbilt University, the place that Cornelius donated, I think it was $1 million to found that university. Guess what? There wasn't a single millionaire in the whole reunion, not a single one. And that was largely because of the culture and the education. So that's the kind of legacy system that you'd be building that the infinite banking concept is all about. It's a process, it's not a product, right? It's way more than simply, oh, here I get a whole life insurance contract and I'm gold. No, the most important thing is how you behave as an individual and how then you teach your next generation how to use it. So you need to really think, in 2 or 3 generations, maybe your picture's hanging up on the wall of the family estate or hanging someplace. And with those children or grandchildren, would they be thinking in their heart, gee, thanks, grandpa or grandma, for setting up a system that we've been able to use and build upon? Or would they possibly not even know what you did? This truly is a legacy. It's not what you leave to people, it's what you leave in people.
Well, thank you, Jason. That was incredible. If you guys are sitting there listening to this, thinking, man, I've never thought about money this way, good. That means you're waking up. And if you want to dive deeper, connect with us.
Yeah, and the reality, Carter, we're on a mission to help millions of people. We've helped thousands of people already, help them restructure their financial lives around control, liquidity, and long-term wealth. In fact, in our book, Master Your Millions, that's one of the things we talk a lot about is control. So thanks everyone for joining us here on Master Your Millions. You want to connect with us, please find the ability to do so in the show notes. Please give us a subscribe and give us a 5-star review. That'd be very helpful for the algorithms and everything. But that's the end of it. That's would be very grateful, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.